In Tokyo, there are intersections where the same scene unfolds every morning. The red light turns on, cars stop, and at that moment, blackbirds take off from the nearby trees, drop something onto the asphalt in front of the front wheels, and fly back. The green light comes on, cars move again, then the red light returns, and the birds come back to collect what is left behind. Cracked nuts. The crows of Tokyo figured this out on their own. No one taught them. They observed the flow of traffic, understood the pattern of the traffic lights, and incorporated it into their food-gathering strategy. This is not an exception. This is the norm for crows. Today, we are talking about a bird that most of us see every day and hardly notice. A creature that solves problems at a 5-year-old child's level, remembers human faces for decades, holds funerals for its dead, and deceives its peers with a cunning worthy of a detective novel. The crow. If you are interested in the wild world, subscribe right now. New videos about animals and nature are released here every week. It will take just 3 seconds. Block 1. What is a crow? Let's start with the confusion that many people have. A raven and a crow are not the male and female of the same bird. They are two different species. The raven is larger, completely black, with a characteristic wedge-shaped tail. The crow is smaller, and most species are grey-black. In the Russian language, this confusion is reinforced by the names themselves, and people have thought for decades that they are talking about one creature. In fact, crows are an entire genus of birds, comprising 43 species. This includes crows in the strict sense, jackdaws, rooks, magpies, and nutcrackers. All of them belong to the Corvidae family, within the order Passeriformes. The smartest birds on the planet are found here. Crows live literally everywhere: the Arctic, deserts, tropics, mountains, cities, and villages. The only condition is that there must be food nearby. And for crows, food can be anything: meat, fish, grains, berries, insects, and even garbage. Crows are absolutely omnivorous. This adaptability is what has made them one of the most successful species on the planet. The wingspan of a grey crow is about 100 centimeters, and it weighs around 500 grams. In the wild, crows live for about 20 years, but in captivity, close to humans and with good care, they can live up to 75 years. This is an exceptional lifespan for a bird of this size. Honestly, I myself thought until recently that a raven was just a large male crow. I learned the truth and was a bit bewildered. We have all become accustomed to this confusion. Block 2. The crow's brain. A bird's brain is structured differently than that of a mammal. Birds lack a neocortex, the part of the brain that neurobiologists traditionally considered responsible for higher cognitive functions. For a long time, this was used as an argument that birds are fundamentally less intelligent. Then, scientists discovered that corvids possess a different brain structure, the pallium, which performs the same functions as the neocortex in primates, just arranged differently. Evolution found another way to achieve the same result. The crow's brain is one of the largest relative to body size among birds. In terms of brain mass to body mass ratio, corvids stand alongside dolphins, are only outdone by humans and some primates. What does this mean in practice? Research has shown that crows solve logical problems at the developmental level of a 5- or sometimes 7-year-old child. They understand cause and effect relationships. They plan for the future. This is not a metaphor, but a documented experimental fact. In one famous experiment, crows were given a task. To obtain food, they needed to use a tool that was not currently in their cage. The tool was in a different compartment, and the birds could take it only now, but use it later. Crows would take the tool in advance, carry it with them, and wait for the moment when it was needed. They were planning actions for the future instead of reacting to the current situation. Future planning is one of the cognitive markers that was long considered an exclusively human ability. Block 3. Tools and tasks. New Caledonian crows are a special species of corvid from the island of New Caledonia in the Pacific Ocean. They became stars of cognitive science in the early 2000s. They don't just use tools, they manufacture them. They take a twig, cut it to the necessary length, remove unnecessary branches, sometimes bend the end, and use the resulting hook to extract larvae from crevices in trees. This is not random behavior. It is a reproducible skill that the birds pass down to their offspring through learning. Notably, if a tool falls during the process, the bird does not abandon it. It descends, picks it up, and returns. The tool has value. In laboratory conditions, crows were presented with tasks that had multiple levels. To obtain food, they first had to retrieve a short tool, which they then used to get a longer tool, and finally use that to access the food. 3 sequential steps, each of which does not yield an immediate result. New Caledonian crows succeeded. This is called meta-tool use. Among animals, it has been observed in chimpanzees, orangutans, and crows. Virtually no one else. A separate story is the experiment with a pitcher, directly replicating Aesop's fable about the crow and the pitcher of water. The birds were given a pitcher with water in which a piece of food was floating. It was too deep to reach with their beaks. Nearby were stones. The crows would drop stones into the pitcher, raising the water level to access the food. They understood the principle of displacement. Moreover, they preferred heavier stones over lighter ones and specifically dropped them into the water rather than into a nearby container of sand. They understood what worked. This moment with the pitcher amazed me the most. It is the fable of Aesop. We read it to children as a tale, and the crow actually does this in the laboratory, on the first try. My first question to you: have you ever seen a crow solve a non-trivial problem? Fight with a dog, open a bag, or use something as a tool? Please share in the comments. Block 4. Memory and faces. A study conducted at the University of Washington changed the perception of crows. The researchers wore masks, and in the experiment, crows were captured on campus grounds. It was a simple operation: catch them, tag them with a ring, and release them. Then, we walked around the same campus, sometimes wearing the masks used during the capture, sometimes other masks, and sometimes without masks at all, observing them. The crows that had been caught while we wore specific masks reacted aggressively to those same masks. Even years later, they would dive, caw, and gather their flock. However, there was no reaction to the other masks. They remembered a specific face as a threat. What was most astonishing was that even birds that had never been captured learned this behavior. Young crows, born after the experiment, reacted to the dangerous masks just like the adults. Information about the threat was passed down through generations. This is not instinct, it's a cultural transmission of information. Social learning, something we typically consider a phenomenon exclusive to humans. Crows remember the people who have harmed them, keeping that information in mind and passing it on to their young. Conversely, crows also remember the people who feed them. In Japan, Canada, and Russia, there have been cases where crows brought gifts to those who regularly fed them. Buttons, coins, shiny stones, bits of glass. This is not coincidence. It's behavior that occurs frequently enough to warrant systematic study. Block 5. Deception, hiding places, and conspiracy. Crows cache food, a fact known to many. This skill is also found in several other animals, but crows have taken it significantly further. When one crow hides food, it watches to see if others are nearby. If they are, it creates a false cache, pretending to bury something while actually leaving nothing behind. Then it flies to another location to hide food there. If the observers follow, it creates another false cache, re-hiding its food if it senses it has been discovered. This is called tactical deception. It requires several complex cognitive operations at once. Understanding that another bird sees what you see, predicting its behavior, simulating a false action, and adapting strategy based on the observer's reaction. Tactical deception has been documented in chimpanzees, in children over the age of 4, and in corvids. An important detail: crows that steal others' caches hide their own more discreetly than those with less experience in stealing. They know how others search because they engage in similar behavior themselves, using this knowledge to better conceal their own food. Another documented fact is that if a crow suspects it was seen while creating a cache, it returns later to re-hide the food in a different spot, but only if there was a real observer. If the crow hid food alone, it does not re-hide it. It keeps track of who saw what. You know, this really struck me. A crow doesn't just lie. It mentally models what another crow sees. This is called theory of mind, previously thought to exist only in humans and primates. It turns out that's not the case. Block 6. Social life. Crows form lifelong pairs. Monogamy is not an exception or a coincidence for them. It is a stable norm. Strategy is necessary because raising offspring requires 2 parents. One hunts while the other guards the nest. Young crows live in large, noisy flocks until they find a mate, forming a sort of youth group. The birds communicate, play, and learn social norms. Once they find a partner, the pair leaves and does not return to the flock. If one partner dies, the surviving crow may remain alone for a long time. Observers have recorded instances of mourning that lasted for years. When a bird in the flock dies, something happens that scientists refer to as crow funerals. A few birds gather around the body, cawing for about 15 minutes before falling silent and sitting still. Then they disperse. Why do they do this? Scientists suggest it is not grief in the human sense, but rather an information-gathering process. The gathered crows try to understand what killed their companion, the location, the scent, the presence of a predator nearby. This is a form of learning from another's death, a social mechanism that enhances the survival of the entire group. However, it indeed resembles a funeral. Crows protect their own. If a bird is injured or sick, the flock feeds it, cares for it, and does not abandon it. There have been documented cases where healthy crows fed injured companions for weeks until they fully recovered. Now, a second question for you. Have you ever noticed a crow watching you? Or seen a crow teasing a dog, cat, or another person? Share your stories. Block 7. Play. Crows truly engage in play. They slide down snowy roofs and icy slopes, not out of necessity, but simply for fun. They climb up, slide down, climb again, and slide again. It is play for the sake of play. They drop objects from heights and catch them, or throw them to a partner who catches and throws them back. This is a direct analogy to playing ball. They tease other animals, swooping down on a dog, tugging at its tail, and bouncing back. It's important to note, this is not aggression. They have enough experience to know that a specific dog won't catch them. This is pure play, a nerve-tingling game. In the forest, crows sometimes fly alongside a fox or an otter, teasing, provoking, and dodging. Researchers have observed this repeatedly. Play in animals is a sign of advanced brains. It requires an excess of cognitive resources that are often lacking in daily life. Only those who have more than the basic necessities for survival can afford to play. Among birds, only corvids and parrots engage in such play. No one else does. Block 8. Language and communication. To the human ear, a crow says, "quote_0, quote_." This is about as informative as saying that humans make the sound "quote_1, quote_." Crows have a complex system of vocal communication. Different variations of their calls convey different information. Alarm signals, food alerts, mate calls, warnings about specific types of predators. Crows can distinguish between aerial and terrestrial predators and call out differently for each. Other animals in the vicinity understand this. Squirrels and small birds react to the crow's aerial alarm by hiding appropriately. Moreover, different flocks of crows have been found to possess dialects. A group of birds from one area has slightly different call variations than a group from a neighboring area. This is a cultural transmission of language, not an instinct, but a learned system that varies slightly from flock to flock. In Austria, researchers found that crows use beak gestures to point at objects and show interesting things to their partners. Until then, pointing was considered an exclusively human and primate trait, and it was not expected to be found in birds. Captive crows can learn human words and do so better than many parrots. They clearly associate words with situations. It's not just sound reproduction, but the use of words in context. Block 9. Crows and humans. Crows hold a special place in human history. Almost all peoples living near these birds have myths, beliefs, and symbolism connected to the crow. In Norse mythology, two crows, Hugin and Munin, representing thought and memory, sit on Odin's shoulders, flying around the world each day to report back to the god about what is happening. This is not a random image. People have observed crows for thousands of years, seeing them as scouts, watchers, beings that know more than they seem to. The Tower of London still hosts crows. According to legend, if they leave the tower, the British crown will fall. Their wings are clipped to prevent them from flying away. They are fed meat, eggs, and biscuits. Each crow has a name and a personal card with its date of birth. This is a state tradition that has lasted for several centuries. The Celtic war goddesses Morrigan and Bab took the form of crows on battlefields. The crow circles above the battle, feeding on the dead. This is real behavior observed in birds, which people have imbued with supernatural meaning. In China, 3 crows in the sun symbolize the sun itself. In Japan, the 3-legged crow Yatagarasu is a messenger of the gods, indicating the way. Almost everywhere, the crow serves as a boundary between worlds, a bird that sees the hidden and knows what is unknown to others. Perhaps this isn't too far from the truth. Supplement 1. The crow as a scientist. There is one experiment that has become a classic in combinatorial science, known as the Aigay task, named after a New Caledonian crow that participated in the study. Aigay was given a tube with food at the bottom, which could only be reached with a hook. There was no hook, only a straight piece of wire. Aigay looked at the wire for a few seconds, then grasped one end with her foot and bent the other end into a hook. She then took the resulting tool and retrieved the food. She had never seen hooks before, and no one taught her how to bend the wire. She solved the problem independently, in real time, from scratch. When the video of this experiment was published in the journal Science in 2002, it sparked a real discussion in the scientific community. What exactly is happening in the bird's mind at that moment? Is it insight, a sudden understanding of the solution, or something else? Repeat experiments with other crows showed that this ability is reproducible. Most individuals can tackle similar tasks. The speed of problem solving varies, but solutions are found. In comparison, most chimpanzees struggle with similar challenges. Unlike other animals, crows have demonstrated an exceptional cognitive ability. They understand the concept of the future. It may sound trivial, but it truly is remarkable. Most animals live in the present, responding to stimuli as they arise. Planning, taking action today for a reward tomorrow, requires the ability to mentally envision a situation that doesn't yet exist. Researchers from Lund University in Sweden tested this with crows. The birds were given access to a trading window where they could exchange tokens for food. Then, the window was closed for 15 hours. Before it closed, the birds were offered either food immediately or a token that would only be useful 15 hours later when the window reopened. The crows chose the token, delaying immediate gratification for future benefit. They planned 15 hours ahead through sleep and long waiting periods. This is known as delayed gratification. For children, this ability typically develops around the age of 4, while most animals never acquire it at all. The third edition, urban crows. Urban crows are a whole different story. They are not merely birds accustomed to living near humans, they actively use the city as their habitat and adapt their behavior to specific conditions. The example of crows and traffic lights has already been mentioned, but it is not the only one. In Russian cities, crows have learned to open trash bins, not just tipping them over, but actually unlocking the lids. They observed humans doing this and replicated the movement. Crows in Moscow have memorized the garbage truck schedules, appearing at trash bins shortly before the trucks arrive, knowing that the contents will be accessible during the unloading process. This is not a coincidence. It is knowledge of a schedule. In Canada, crows systematically steal bait from fishermen, pulling the line out of the hole step by step until the hook with the bait is on the ice. They invented this on their own by observing the fishing process. Urban crows are larger and smarter than their woodland counterparts, a fact that has been documented. The city is an environment that provides more stimuli, more challenges, and more opportunities for learning. Crows raised in urban settings perform better on cognitive tests. They are literally evolving alongside us. I now view the crow that sits in my yard every morning on the same lamppost in a different light. I wonder, what has she learned about me? The fourth edition. How to befriend a crow? Many people have noticed that if you offend a crow once, it will remember you and remind you of it at every encounter, with a caw, a dive, or sometimes a precise hit from above. The opposite is also true. If you regularly feed crows in one spot, they will remember you and start to expect your presence. Some even begin to bring you gifts. Zoologist John Marsluff from the University of Washington described how his daughter regularly fed crows. Over time, the birds began leaving her objects right there. At the plate of food, a button, a piece of mirror, a bent paperclip. This is documented behavior. Crows can exhibit something akin to gratitude. If you want to befriend a crow, feed it regularly at the same place and time. Avoid sudden movements. Gradually, it will start to approach closer. Then take food from your hand. This takes time, but it works. People keep crows as pets and describe them as exceptionally intelligent, affectionate, and sometimes jealous beings. A crow in captivity can learn several dozen words. It uses them in context. It doesn't just mimic sounds. It says hello when someone enters and goodbye when someone leaves. This isn't training, it's understanding. Supplement 5. Crows and Death. This is a topic that scientists study cautiously because it easily slips into anthropomorphism. However, there are data, and they are intriguing. Researchers from the University of California, Davis, observed the behavior of American crows near dead birds. They wanted to test the hypothesis of funerals. Is it really a ritual or just a reaction to an unusual object? The findings were as follows. Crows sit near the body of a dead bird. They caw, then fall silent, then scatter, and afterward avoid the spot where the body lay for several days. This is not mere curiosity. It's avoidance of a dangerous area, learning through observing another's death. But there's a nuance. Near a dead crow, they cawed much longer and louder than near a dead bird of another species. This indicates that they distinguish between their own and others, and the death of one of their own elicits a stronger reaction. To call this grief means projecting human emotions onto birds, but to call it merely a reflex means ignoring the data. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Crows live long lives. They know their kin for years. They form stable social bonds. When someone from this network disappears, something happens. How exactly this is experienced from the inside, we don't know, but something definitely occurs. Supplement 6. Crows and Mirrors. The mirror self-recognition test is one of the standard tools in cognitive science. The idea is simple. An animal is marked in a way it cannot see without a mirror, and researchers observe whether it tries to remove the mark by looking at its reflection. If it does, it indicates that the animal understands it sees itself in the mirror. This test has been passed by chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, dolphins, elephants, orcas, and corvids. Magpies became the first birds to pass the self-recognition test in 2008. Since then, similar results have been obtained with crows. What does this mean? It means the bird has a self-image. The concept of I is not an abstraction. It is a specific neural construct that allows one to distinguish oneself from the environment. The list of beings possessing this includes humans, large primates, dolphins, elephants, orcas, and corvids. That's it. The next time you see a crow at a trash can, remember, this creature knows it exists. Closure. Every morning, you step outside and almost certainly see a crow. Sitting on a street light, walking along the sidewalk, rummaging through a trash bag. Just an ordinary grey bird. But in reality, it's a creature that recognizes your face, remembers it for years, assesses you as a threat or a potential ally, relays this information to its chicks, plans actions several steps ahead, can deceive, create tools, and negotiate. It watches you and might be drawing conclusions about you. The third question. Has your attitude towards the crow changed after this video? Or is it still just a noisy bird in the yard? Share your thoughts in the comments. It's always interesting to read. Subscribe to the Wild World channel. Give a like if you found the video worthwhile. Until the next episode. Yeah.